everybody can't go. We're at a point where you got to be responsible for your own actions. You say ignorant shit and do ignorant shit, and you got to win ignorant prizes. The days of trying to enlighten a stupid motherfucker that don't want to listen is over.
It ain't over, because there's a lot of stupid people.
That shit's over. Let them drown.
Like, you gotta think, like, at a certain age, somebody's made a constant, they have made a decision, this is going to be their worldview. Like, we all like how we gonna live our lives in our early 20s and mid 20s. You can't convince no nigga that's 27 years old that him supporting Trump is his detriment. You gotta look like this. People like that appreciate Trump because one, Trump's a kind man. He's a scammer. He's every criminal you can think of rolled into one, and niggas like him for that criminality, that technology. Maybe doing this, do that. That's that weird hustle culture we developed amongst young black men. As a recent, where like there's no such thing as integrity. There's always a trick to something, and that's kind of the bullshit niggas be talking about with Trump. Like somehow, some way, a lot of black men, young black men, think that if shit get worse, we're gonna go back to the 50s and 60s, but we were stronger. And these are niggas who only live in the world with modern internet and modern amenities. So like arguing niggas with DSL internet about going back to the times before that. These niggas come up with a life. So like
they have dial-up, because I had dial-up when I was young.
I said DSL, that's how young he is. DSL came out like 2003. This is somebody who was like literally 5 years old in 2000, like in 2003. This person was born in 90.
You're exactly right, and these niggas are looking at it from an internet, a Wi-Fi lens, high-speed Wi-Fi lens.
They can't fathom an isolated world where they don't have a nemesis. They can't fathom a world where there is no buying power, no purchasing power. They can't fathom a world of where somebody tells them who's not a police officer what to do, they gotta go do it. They don't understand that world. These niggas' grandma's moms be 45, 50. I'm not arguing no nigga who ain't older than the PBS channel. I'm not doing it. I'm not arguing. I'm not gonna get niggas no water. Like my mama the same age as Ruby Bridges, dog. I'm not gonna argue no nigga mama 45 with the freak nigga. Fuck out of here.
Not too much on freak.
Look,
I get what you guys are saying about the younger crew, but I guess my question is, being an older man myself, are we still in the young times when we were young? We're in the times now, and sometimes we're stuck in our own minds in the older times, thinking about when we were younger, thinking about things that happened, but things have changed, times have changed.
Hey, we didn't do this.
So let me tell you something. Why you said being an older man, right? And when we were growing up, I grew up in a situation where if you, a young man, you're with an older man, and you acting like you fucking don't want to take the knowledge, and you just want to be an asshole, then you're left alone. Or if you want to step to a grown-ass man, you're going to get your ass beat by a grown-ass man. This shit this day, they tell the kids are fucking pussy exactly the way they act like. I don't get if someone's fucking 17 years old, you're a fucking man by then.
Yeah, we in an era right now, man, where when I was coming up, they made cooning fashionable now. When I was growing up, we had Public Enemy, we had KRS-One, we had X-Clan. We had people who embraced being black and looked at being black like it was a cool thing, and we wanted to learn. We even had songs by KRS, You Must Learn. We were enlightened. Now these little niggas are growing up on Percocet, lean, and thinking that coonery is the thing to do and support Trump, and don't even know what to stand on. They don't study shit. They don't learn shit. They just are lost. Like that dude who was on this panel right now. I try to show grace. There are a lot of intelligent young people out there. There are some young people doing the right thing, but when we hear people like what that man just now was on the stage saying, it makes you wonder how many other motherfuckers are thinking like this. And sadly and scarily, there are a lot of people thinking like him with this coolness, defeatist behavior where they supporting a rich, racist white man who has no love for you, and they can't even explain why. They spin in circles and shit. They will trade their own heritage in just to try to fit in with the Jersey Shore motherfucker. It's weird. It is the weirdest shit I've ever seen in my life. There is no knowledge whatsoever of even trying to have self-preservation for these motherfuckers. They don't want them to sit here and coon all goddamn day. I don't know if they get platforms and they're paid to coon, if they just trolls that are put here by the clubhouse founders. Who the fuck knows? They paid. I'm scared of where this shit's going. It's cooning shit and it's sitting here and
Yeah, but I do think we gotta work on our patience with these young people. Like, stop now. Honestly, I do think we do need to work on our patience with these young people. So I do agree with Ryan. Now, if you're
So bring him back up, Patty, so he can make himself.
Ryan, are you white or black, Ryan? I gotta ask.
Don't do that now.
It's all good.
Do you remember Lil Yachty? Remember when Lil Yachty said that nonsense about?
No, I want to know if Ryan is white or black.
He's not
No,
black.
I don't care if he's white or black. That's not the
Because
conversation.
I care because it's a white man.
You go on mute and let Black Freedom speak real quick.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly build on it because, like, I mean, even if you weren't actively supporting,
I'm a lotto.
I can't lie.
What if
even if you was
He's mixed. It doesn't matter. Just go on mute.
Yeah, he got the white man view.
Don't do that because most of the moderators that run this room. Matter of fact, people that run this room are fucking biracial. So
I don't have a problem with that. I'm talking about him. He got a white man.
let's. Okay, so what?
Yeah, so it ain't the same. That's what. But
Thank
what?
you.
So what I'll just quickly say is that, just to add to that point, I don't even think people should people aren't required to actively be for the cause. There are a lot of people, who aren't for the cause. It just becomes concerning to me, particularly with this younger generation, where they're actively like against things. Like you can just be quiet. So for example, I'm sure folks are familiar with what Lil Yachty said on one of his tracks, just completely disrespectful to George Floyd in his memory. Like just like motherfuckers actively saying shit that like is not just cooning, but is like just anti-black as fuck. And these are just coming from black folks. Something happened. I mean, whatever you think about Drake, I mean, but when you have like on certain tracks, him saying "beat your ass like American slaves," like what the fuck is this shit? Like it's the weirdest shit that I've never seen it before. I mean, I'm not that old, but this wasn't happening in the 90s. This wasn't even happening in the early 2000s. Where people were just being like deliberately anti-black on tracks.
And I just want to say, and even when y'all talk about when we were young, no, we didn't do this. We had the chance to vote. If you're 40 or late 30s, you voted, for Obama probably your first or second time. We could have, chose to go a different way. We did not. These new young people are different. If you just listen to what he was saying, he couldn't be told anything. And then when you look in the chat, comprehension is not in the room. Now you have 10 plus adults, varying degrees of success, and that's your assertion is that nobody can comprehend you. These young people are different. They are way, way more indignant and way more entitled than we ever were. So, I mean, to just think more than everybody on any stage and to like speak with such fervency and such audacity is just crazy. And you see it every fucking day. So I think we showed a lot of patience with him, but he's the one who wouldn't be quiet, and he's the one who really wouldn't take it. And I don't think nobody yelled at him or anything, but that's a typical, YN. But like they said, if you take this back pre-internet, they can't survive. They can't. They talking about they want to go back to the 1940s. None of these niggas are married. None of these niggas are having babies in wedlock. They're just repeating talking points. So I don't know, bro.
Can I jump in? Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand the level of cynicism, right? The accelerationist argument is basically saying, government doesn't work, it hasn't worked, it can't work, so just blow the whole thing up. But I think the one of the big things they're missing is the scale of human suffering seems to really be glossed over in that scenario. Like in this imagination where, okay, America just ends and then tomorrow we have something better or whatever. Like that's not really how it's going to work. And I found it really troubling, the metaphor he used, right, where the American people are DV victims who have been abused by their government, and Trump is an even bigger abuser who's going to hurt them even more and get them to realize, like through the means of government, and get them to realize, oh, this is abusive and I need to get out of it. Like, I don't really think that metaphor stands. So I feel like if your primary motivation is not to reduce human suffering, then I just don't know, like, what we're doing here. And I also think something that's missing is an understanding of how a dictatorship works. So, like, this idea that somehow under Trump or those closely aligned with him, that things are going to get so bad that eventually the people just rise up and it all is over. That's not really how dictatorship works. Like, once they're in power, they can stay in power for many, many decades. And it doesn't matter how bad things are or how bad you want to get out of it. Like, they're in control and they have the guns, and that's how it works.
It took a world war to get Hitler out of power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think they're kind of, maybe they're not really students of history and understanding, like, the scale of the things that they're actually talking about. The last thing I'll say is just about the connection between, like, evangelicalism and white supremacy. I mean, I'm sure so many of you know the quote by Martin Luther King about the Sunday morning church hour being the most segregated hour in America. And if you look at what a lot of these evangelical and Catholic churches are teaching, it is very closely aligned with white supremacy and with patriarchy. Under the church system, like the modern day typical white church, it's basically all white people. All the white men are in charge. Women play a very, like, secondary, non-decision making role. Very few people of color are empowered in any kind of leadership except in their own personal homes. So when people talk about all this, oh, there's going to be, like, a revival in America, and there's going to be this, and there's going to be that. Like, when they talk about following God and Jesus, like, they are imagining a very patriarchal white supremacist message. So I'll just land there.
And I'm glad you said that, because a lot of what's happened to, like, with Black people over the past few years, people, guys like, Umar Johnson, Tariq Nasheed, this is a peel back to the 60s or the stronger time period when we had less rights but more unity. And it kind of plays this evangelical nonsense of a pure time when people are much more simple and the Black folks live across the tracks. And I don't think a lot of these younger people understand what they're exactly asking for or what they exactly believe in. They don't understand the idea of at one time Black people had much autonomy outside their own house. And even then, somebody come barge house and take what they wanted from you at will. They're not from a world where there was a black side of train tracks and there was a white side. So this appeal they have for this world they want to see just doesn't exist, and they lead themselves down. They lead themselves back into a segregated burning house this time.
So just with that, a couple of things. A lot of these kids are raised and taught in a bubble of, like, a post-racial society. If you have any children under the age of, like, from, like, 10 to 15, 16, you will have seen their curriculum and what, like, especially if they live in, like, a liberal town, what kind of schooling that they go to. And I think a lot of them leave school and realize that we don't live in a post-racial society and don't really know how to deal with it. I think the death of expertise. Everybody thinks that they know what they're doing because they have TikTok and they saw a couple of videos or went to YouTube University. It's really funny, like, a lot of these kids want to tell you what to do with the internet when some of these things are, the things that they're using are things that you built. They have a get fast approach where they think that we just don't know how to do it fast enough, and they have some secret code that's going to get them richer and quicker. And lastly, they They have no idea. These kids are on Amazon Prime. They're on Discord in these little bubbles. They have no idea what struggle looks like. Missing the bus and getting their jeans wet, not getting what they wanted. You see them crashing out in school because somebody took their phone away. What are they going to do in an anarchist situation? They have no idea. They have no idea.
Crystal, do y'all realize that if the government wants to, like if it's going to be a dictatorship, the government can just turn off the internet and that's it? Do they realize that?
And I think, like, the thing is, like, every generation did do a form of this, but the government wasn't using them as useful idiots to forward an agenda that could change this fabric of the country forever. That's just my opinion.
Okay, but yeah, I agree with Ryan, y'all. We gotta have more patience with some of these younger people. Are these old motherfuckers that keep coming up here? Like the TCs and Anthony's, you ain't gonna be able to change that.
Can y'all hear me?
Go ahead, Chad.
All right, I'm gonna try
You
to.
gotta change your name too. Just gonna keep thinking I'm gonna call you Jay.
That's cool. All right, I'm gonna try to start off with this. All right, so what I'm basically trying to articulate, it's kind of hard to articulate to people who already got a fixed mindset. So, all right, the disconnect between the younger people and the older people is the older people are not accepting new information. Because if you think about it, are the black family, is the black
information very real quick.
New information or new ways of thinking. Like, okay, you know how like Martin Luther King, I'm gonna just take it all the way back. You know how Martin Luther King was saying like, okay, he had a dream, white people, black people, like living together, young together, and then he turned around before he died and told us that he did us a disservice because he realized what he realized, like, okay, these people were never gonna love us, they're never gonna let us get in position, they never gonna do these things for it, they never gonna get us reparation, you're not gonna do the thing that they promised us. And then they killed him. So fast forward time, we following government, we getting all the vaccinations, we doing all these things that the government is telling us to do and having faith in them. And as time going on, we looking at our parents and when we getting older, we not vaccinating our kids because we doing further research and learning the dangers of vaccines and how it plays a part in a lot of ADHD and bipolar and all type of behavior problems. So when we researching all this shit and we getting more educated with science and all this new information, not new information, but updated information or real information. And then we try to come back and tell our parents and stuff like, hey, this is what we found out. This is why I'm not getting my baby vaccinated. Then they want to still argue with us and tell us we don't know nothing. It's like, no, y'all was so a bunch of bullshit. And this is how we got here today, to where all the girls is stripping and being hoes, and all the niggas want to kill each other, and we just fuck.
And that has to do with vaccines.
Also, no, not vaccine. That was just an example.
Okay, so what I'm telling you is bipolar has nothing to do with vaccines. But when you guys come to us, because I have children in your age, how old are you?
27. This 27.
Oh no, you're older than my kids. Okay, no problem. So when they come to me with misinformation that they got off of TikTok, Facebook,
it's not this TikTok.
Let me get out.
Gotta have more patience. Bitch, you in the Matrix.
It's only because I'm at the White House.
Bitch, you in the Matrix.
I'm in. Hello.
You're coming in and out. Is anybody else hearing her coming in and out, or is it me?
Yeah, she's coming in and out.
She's coming in and out.
Am I coming in and out? Am I in the Matrix?
Now you're
okay. Let me be clear.
You're back in the Matrix.
No.
You're in the Matrix again, Lisa.
Holy cow. Okay, I'm going in.
All right.
So I do want to address something when you talk about Martin Luther King. He's still he didn't. He still believed in integration. What changed was economic justice. That's what it was.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah, and militarism. It wasn't separation. He never turned to separation.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a book you can get called Kingonomics by Dr. Rodney Sampson, and it takes a look at the economic philosophy of Dr. King in the last years of his life. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, he still wanted us to be able to integrate. It was more about economics. Was about systematic racism, and I think he was becoming more militaristic, right?
Yeah, and let me ask you this: what is racism?
No, we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole because there's gonna be a big.
Okay, I'm gonna just say this: economics definitely has racism has a part to play in economics. Racism is systematic.
Thank you for that.
And Thomas Sowell has some good information on economics too.
Yeah.
So basically, what I was basically trying to say is, say your whole family get kidnapped, right? And the kidnappers have y'all live by these set of rules. And everybody's just, like, your whole family is just living by these rules. You have kids, and then your kids raise their kids to obey by these rules. It's like, this is the generation coming after me. We realizing that we have been fucking kidnapped, and we need to stop playing their fucking game. This is fucking sick. That's what I'm saying. So I want to say, I like Trump, what Trump is doing, because Trump is fucking tearing this shit apart. This is what needs to happen.
This not what needs to happen. So, Jess, you brought up Martin Luther King, right? You ever heard of the Poor People's Campaign?
Yes.
So I want you to Google Poor People's Campaign and look at what's happening today, right? So, like, at that time when, with the Poor People Campaign, or even the book that he recommended you to read, he started to realize, like, white folks want to support us when it comes to civil rights. But what if their support is going to be fragile when they feel like they're going to lose power to resources? And that's what's happening now, right? So, like, I always bring up these little Psychology Today magazines and all this shit to support for Donald Trump, white young men. It's their access to resources, their access to power. They feel like they've lost that. They don't see us getting hosed. They don't see us sitting in the back of the bus. But they ignore the other difficulties that's going on, right? So because they don't see the fucking, they don't see that. They don't see dogs biting our kids and shit. They don't see kids getting rocks thrown at them going into the schools. They think that we're on equal playing ground. And now they think we've taken their resources and they don't have power. And King predicted this in the end.
So, have you ever heard the saying, or not, it's not a saying, but you know, like, when you clean up something, it like, when you clean up a house, it looks fucked up before it actually gets clean?
What's going on? Are you trying to be a poet? Because you be coming up with something.
No. He's giving a perspective I hear all of them, so I want to, like, dismiss. I do hear this quite a bit.
Okay, go ahead.
So, like, just like somebody had said it earlier, in order to get Hitler out of position, World War I had to happen, right? And it's crazy because y'all saying like
that was World
War II. Okay, World War II. It's crazy because like y'all saying stuff like the younger people don't know what hard times is and this and that. Like I'm from that generation like right before. Like I was still old enough to remember like missing a bus and all that shit. I'm before iPhones and all this shit. I didn't grow up with an iPhone in my hand. I didn't grow up with computers. I didn't grow up with shit. We didn't have fucking TV in my room. But anyways, what I'm saying is,
I'm 27. I had computers and I'm 40, so.
We was broke.
I had AOL.
I didn't have the lady who raised me was broke as hell. Anyway, so what I'm saying is y'all still don't understand struggling this and yet. However, although that is true, a lot of people haven't experienced a lot of stuff that y'all have experienced. We are more war ready and ready to fight for what we really believe in than y'all ever had.
we are more like the energy that we got towards each other, how we killing each other. We really want to take this towards the real opponents, but we don't have everybody backing us up, especially our elders. Y'all don't really want to die about this and really could make a way in a different life for the people that's coming after us. Y'all don't really want to die about this shit. Y'all playing.
Yo, let me just say something to you real quick, just because I just look up history. You're talking about, being ready to die. Go look at the murder rate when we were kids and the crime that was going on when we were kids. This what y'all got going on is light fucking work. Y'all really think y'all are soldiers, and I'm with all due respect, y'all are not, bro. Y'all have luxuries that we do not have, and y'all think y'all are ready for war. Y'all don't even understand what war is. Y'all have not had a crack epidemic. Y'all have not had the things that we have.
We are the byproducts of that.
Y'all are not the byproducts of the crack epidemic. You're not. You're not, and that's what we are. Sir, let me finish. You are allowed to talk. I mean, this is telling in and of itself. We allowed you to talk. Now I'm just interjecting to give you some information, and you don't want to take it. But what I'm telling you is you're abreast of what's going on right now, and you're talking about y'all are soldiers and y'all are killers. Y'all aren't. Y'all do a whole bunch. Let me finish, bro.
This N-word is a killer.
Y'all do a whole bunch of internet banging and a whole bunch of, chatting. Y'all do a whole bunch of cyber thugging, and then y'all do this drill music. This does not make you soldiers, and more importantly, it doesn't make you politically aware. You're just making noise, and you're an example of it because the things you're saying have no real basis in reality. You talking about look how we killing each other. We really want to bring it to somebody that doesn't make sense, bro. And you really need to slow down and rethink what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this whole idea of dismissing generational experiences, how they see it, is dangerous. And look, they lived through COVID. They've lived through Trump. And they honestly may have a better perspective than many of us do because the world now is closer to how they see it than it is broader experience we had. What we know from 20 and 30 years ago isn't as relevant today because of Trump. Normally it would be, right? But the experience they have may give them a more realistic perspective in a lot of ways.
May I say something real quick? Because I don't know. So real quick, we have grandparents and parents who lived through Jim Crowism in their particular states where they were virtually police states, right? Like you had to be inside at a certain time because crackers would kill you. So if anybody has a sense of what we're living through, it would be older folks who actually understood that, listen, if you spoke a certain way, if word got out that you were, talking about the white politician in town, people would show up to your crib and it'll be a different kind of story. So I hear where CEO's coming from, especially in terms of technology and things of that sort. So,
and I was talking about Gen Xers, just to be clear, not babies.
I understand, but I'm also speaking about folks just older versus younger, where as just a general matter, and even when it comes to Gen X, they understand what these stories are because their parents and their grandparents were telling them these stories. One, we have a concerted attack by this administration, state legislatures, state governors in red states to eliminate Black history in our schools. So any possibility of folks understanding what our history is constantly being attacked right now. What in South Carolina, when they got rid of, I'm looking at this matter right now, South Carolina, where they were doing the AP African American Studies program, there was a lawsuit filed. I'm not going to say who filed it, but basically it's a public record. But there was a lawsuit filed, and the court dismissed it. But this is important stuff here, where kids can't get access to Black history. And then the
my former professor who died a few years ago, he actually was around when Malcolm and Martin were alive and actually worked with them directly. He would say that, like, even though everybody wasn't an activist, everybody knew what time it was. Everybody knew what direction we were trying to go in. All right. I don't know what this younger generation believes in to even fight for. And then finally, we have to get out of this mindset. So I'll be curious about what y'all believe in that you're willing to die for. And then secondly, the point here is we have to get out of this mindset that, like, your commitment to a particular political struggle is your willingness to die for it. If anything, you should be willing to live for something. Live for a better future. Live for a better tomorrow rather than die for it. So I'll just be curious about what this younger generation actually believes in, that it would be willing to either live or die for.
Well, I'll say this, and my whole thing
I think Fuji wanted to speak. He has been waiting.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
I'd like to get in line too.
At this point, y'all gotta realize y'all talking to a generation of people who are purposefully, like, historically illiterate. Like, it's not that they don't have access to information. This is what they just choose to engage with. They know exactly what they're saying is wrong. They know exactly what they're saying is stupid. I'm pretty sure Justin has read both sides of the argument. He actually took, if he's made to the age of 27, he had over 12 years of public school system education. They had history classes. So we're arguing with people who just they are living in a world. They have made an alternate universe. They made an alternate version of history. We can't convince these people. And I mean, I will hope for this young man to get. I'm 33 years old. I'm not that much older than this little nigga, but the idea of him kind of ascending or understanding, like, Black history is pretty much moot because they choose not to willfully engage with it. They choose that, well, it was just better if we all get ready to die for it. They look at it. They look for this one great man. They look for the next V.P. Newton. That's the only thing they want. It's like, we need another you. We need another Mark. We need another Malcolm. They don't actually realize, like, it takes infrastructure and people to actually help them along the way to get to that point of having V.P. Newton or Martin. They also think it takes masses to do that. It's not people willing to die. Nobody is willing to die for anything. No soldier goes to war wanting to get killed. People want to go to war to go win. Like, they're not even talking about winning. It's just this fatalist idea. Like, no, if enough of us die, it'll galvanize the masses into believing that. And that shit just historically is not true. So when we engage with these kids, these young folk who talk about, things being tough or what they're the byproducts of whatever, they don't even realize how catered and how careful their world is. Even the kids who grew up in the hood or grew up in the aftermath of the war on crime and the war on drugs, they don't even realize, like, for the most part, you grew up in a world that's, like, they got rid of pretty much all the real dope dealers, all the real cartels. They pushed the niggas aside. Yeah, they killed them and they put them in jail. There's no more super duper kingpins walking around the hood no more. These just penny ante drug dealers. These are the remnants. Ain't no more OGs left. They all got life sentences. They all supermax. So when we talk to these kids, they don't even know that the world they live in. They live in a post-apocalyptic scenario pretty much with drug dealers. They don't understand that like that era has shifted for them. So when they discuss these things about crime and dependency on things, and we need to get off of this or get on that, they don't understand that they don't live in the world. They have never really seen that world. They don't remember when they don't remember the ghetto gunfight of the 90s. They don't remember the ghetto gunfights of the age between the police and drug dealers. They don't even know that. They live in a very plush world. So, like, until they understand that, until they realize, wait a minute, make my world a little bit nicer because nobody has an Uzi out walking around the street. I know there's nobody, like, the crack epidemic isn't that real for me. Like, you don't see full-time high-rise full of drug dealers no more. They don't have a right to talk on these issues no more.
Well, I'll say this, and I think that there's an over emphasis on like the 60s and like that era, because the world that people are in and are growing up in now is just different from that world. Yes, there was a time, and I know because my dad, he grew up in that era, and he grew up under segregation and stuff in Alabama back in the 60s and marched in the civil rights movement. But the thing is, we don't live in that era anymore. Like these young kids now, their biggest concern is not a Klansman. Like their biggest concern is like MS-13, fucking with them while they're trying to play basketball in the park going towards the evening. So they gotta leave the park at a certain time in the evening because MS-13 gonna show up. You know what I mean? So that's the world today that we live in now. And I think that here's the thing: like Malcolm and Martin and people like that, Stokely Carmichael, the Panthers. They were all legends, and they fought for what they believed in their time. But they are no longer relevant in the time that we're in now. So we need to retire them. We should respect them, but we need to retire them and put them to rest and deal with this what we got going on now. And no, we're not all going to think the same way. We're not all going to vote the same way, or I think that we galvanize that time period because we look at it as like this monolithic time period where we're all somehow moving in the same direction and moving. But there was a lot of people who disagreed back then. There were a lot of people who criticized Martin Luther King and criticized, the moves that he made back then and stuff like that. So it wasn't really all like that.
You don't think,
but I just think,
you don't think Martin had anything to say about gang violence? He politicized gangs. Like what?
MS-13 is not
organizing gang members like freaking the Vice Lord, and they were marching with them and getting folks in line. Like, you don't think King had anything to say about gang violence, for example?
Well, I am confused about this though. Gen Xers are the ones who raised the generation we're talking about. So they got their mindset from Gen Xers. So it didn't happen by osmosis.
That's not true.
Why is that? How is that not true, Justin?
Because there are way more influences than just their parents. Even us, we don't get our mindset straight from our parents. A lot of us think way different than our parents. And these kids have hella other influences: video games, social media, computers, massive propaganda. Like, so this is not.
Just I can prove it. Hold on. Please let me say something. I can prove it. Gen Z is the most trusting generation of their parents in history. There's surveys on this. They have a higher trust rate of their parents than millennials, Gen Xers, or baby boomers did. So they're the most trusting of their parents in history.
I don't see how that correlates to them being like them.
Can I say something real quick?
Just parents.
Can I say something?
Of course, Dr. H.
Yeah, just real quick. I think CEO is partially right, and this is one of the things I said. The Gen X is the sort of post-soul kind of generation, and Gen X parents raise their kids with an attitude. A lot of Gen X parents raise their kids with an attitude that they were going to provide for their kids what they didn't have. And that became an indulgence in excess. They didn't want their kids to want for anything because as Gen Xers, we grew up with parents who were children of the Depression, who were children of segregation, and they had a very, I would say kind of limited, they had very restrictive ideas, right? And so Gen Xers kind of grew up without a lot of attentiveness, I would say. And these parents are overly attentive and they indulge their kids. So CEO is a little bit right on that. But the thing I wanted to say to the other person that was speaking is, even in your comment, your perception of the history is it's awkward because it's more than Martin Luther King. And what's different about the kids now is that as kids or as 20-somethings, they are not engaged in the real politic of their environments. When those people, like the civil rights movement, we think about Martin Luther King, but those things were done by college students. It was college students that were doing those sit-ins. It was college students that were marching with King. When we think about that, we think of all the older people, but there were young people that were doing those things. And even as a Gen Xer,
we had a political consciousness. We may not, all of us didn't live in drug-infested environments, but we knew that this was the reality this was a social reality that we had to be aware of, and that we had to be consciously committed to not being involved in, or doing what we could as when we became adults to make sure that that didn't persist. So I think it's a different kind of social conditioning. And the lack of understanding and the lack of knowledge of history is the problem. These young people are living very curated lives. I put that in the chat. Curated by their parents, curated by the internet. And so their perspectives are very narrow. And it's all about
projection alert of the day. Projection alert of the day.
And that's not the way it's been in previous generations. And I think that is a particular problem, especially for us as Black people, because we are living in the civil rights movement right now, right this moment. We are living in it. And they have no awareness of that.
Those are great points, Dr. A.G. Hard to build upon that. I want to just add, there's a structural component to this as well that I think cannot be ignored, that really comes from the time of Gen X, particularly deindustrialization, the attack on teachers and workers, deunionization. These are spaces where folks are becoming politicized, along with what I believe is the increase in higher education as you begin to see more Black folks enter higher education. During the 1950s and 1960s, we know that going to colleges and universities didn't cost nearly as much, not even close to what it costs now. But you begin to see the increase of higher education over time as more Black people get enrolled, and when you begin to see Black studies and ethnic studies and Chicano studies, among other things, come into academia. And I think that's deliberate to make college and going to college something that's so highly coveted and something that you should pursue to ensure that your family, specifically your family, is good. I mean, Dr. A.G. made a great point, which built upon CEO's point, that, it very much was like, hey, listen, we need to make sure that you had that I didn't have. And I think to a certain degree that, not the analysis, but that approach is a very kind of individualized approach when it comes to raising children, as opposed to kind of understanding a kind of collective obligation. Obviously, this isn't true for all Gen X folks, but I do believe that as you began to see the emergence of neoliberalism, what you also saw was an individualization of what it meant to be a Black person in this country. I mean, Manning Marable wrote how capitalism was underdeveloped in Black America, of course, drawing from Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And I think his analysis is right in that regard, at least culturally, that you begin to see a departure. Well, I think Jesse Jackson said we need to move from civil rights to civil rights. So I do think Gen X has a certain kind of role to play in where we are, but I think it has a lot to do very much with a departure from, or rather a transformation, let me put it that way, a transformation of what the movement was, which was to fight for rights, which then became to fight for, opportunities, in corporate America, opportunities with white-collar jobs, especially when you began to see blue-collar jobs deunionized, when you began to see the start of CEOs making vast amounts of wealth compared to their working counterparts. So I do think that there's a structural analysis as well. The attack on teachers, we still continue to see that. The refusal to even have folks be exposed on the primary, intermediate, and secondary level to Black history, among other kinds of more marginalized histories. So I don't lay the blame squarely on young people. There's certainly a role to play there, but like this shit is structural and it's deliberate. And the young people that we're seeing now, they're really becoming kind of like the collateral damage in some ways as a result of what we've been seeing. So
And Black Freedom, just a quick kind of thought question for you. So you mentioned earlier how hip hop artists were different in the 90s, and of course I agree with you. However, if they had internet and social media then the same way we have it today, how much closer would they have been to what we see today?
I mean, it's tough. I think, for me, it's kind of like a ground up thing. I think I think the conversations would be different. So, for example, motherfuckers hated Reagan. But also there was this, I think, larger global push to end South African apartheid in the late 80s, early 90s, especially among the Black community. There was culturally an emphasis on doing Black things, whether you're talking about movies, film, television, music, all that stuff. It was just, I repeated myself, my bad, but you get the point. Ultimately, I think there was a kind of obviously Afrocentrism, but I think culturally things were different. There was still kind of collective consciousness that we aren't seeing as much today, even when we saw that in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, those are some great points. If you don't mind me adding to it, can I ask Just, if you're still there? I don't know if it's Justin or Just, but I have a question for you. Being 27 years old and doing what you're doing, trying to free think, trying to find the right things to think about. I find that from people I grew up with, because I grew up in Las Vegas, I grew up 28th Street gangs. I was around gangs. We lived in a brick apartment because there were a lot of drive-bys, and a lot of bulls can go through bricks. And then I moved to the country, and I live in the country now. My question to you is, I've seen in my life where economic disparity, has crippled all people, colors, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, maybe while he deals with that, I'll just jump in. I want to. Oh, are you back? Okay. I'm thinking about the legacy of the No Child Left Behind policy that Bush implemented in 2002 and then was replaced by Every Student Succeeds in 2015. The way it really focused on test outcomes, and so things like teaching to the test, and how that kind of narrowed the curriculum, because I believe those tests were focused mainly on reading and math, among other things.
And if I could just quickly add it, defunding schools.
Right.
Funding's what we need.
Exactly.
It's coming.
Yeah, so there was less teaching in topics like, social studies and history and things that we've been talking about. And then, the long-term effect being that non-tested subjects were de-emphasized or cut entirely. And that's particularly in so-called underperforming schools, right? In low-income districts. So we know who that is. I just wonder if all of this might have to do with, younger folks not having the same education that maybe some of us older folks had in terms of the history and stuff like that.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, that's great too. Let me get this question out, and I'm going to get off here. Thank you guys for broadening my understanding of what goes on out there in the world.
Thanks for teaching me something today, even though you didn't teach me nothing.
How, or have you been taught, or maybe you're teaching yourself, or maybe you come alongside a mentor, but how are you, as a young man, because I'm 22 years your senior, as a young man,
Junior, you're the junior, not the senior.
I'm curious how the young people look at this, because I work with some young people, and this is their thoughts a little bit different.
Maybe he ain't the junior.
Me personally, or you want me to speak for people on my age?
I'm talking to you personally. How are you economically? What are you doing to better yourself economically in your life right now, in your situation?
So right now, me personally, I'm just paying from something that I don't want to speak on right now. But so I'm starting a nonprofit organization. Starting there and starting with my book that I'm writing as well. And from there, I'm having negotiations with other people
And we're going to be planning on part of the nonprofit. We're going to be partnering with this this program. I can't even think right now. I'm not sure, but where they're going to be able to get people housing, like affordable housing, and building it from the ground up, and things like that. It's not the humanity of America or something like that. Anyway, so
Habitat for
we're doing stuff like that. Yeah, Habitat for Humanity, partnering with them and incorporating the nonprofit organization for at-risk youth. We're gonna be like allowing them to get some education, to get some hands-on training with just building a house from the ground up for a lot of the boys and girls. And from there, taking a lot of the money and investing it back into the organization, and then taking whatever accumulates from there. We gave ourselves a 10-year span to like growth to build or accumulate income and money to set aside for further investments, and not even just for ourselves as far as like real estate and things like that. But put money aside to really like bless people so they can go back into their story and incorporate God and how God moved in my life and moved in their life. Because we want to like get like start people off with a fighting chance of owning property. Like if I can just put myself in position and leveraging the people that's around me, because I got some real good people around me, and we can get properties to just bless people with, like say if a kid goes a certain amount of days without getting expelled from school, like a kid that's usually bad, like I want to turn like get like incentivize them and give them something to really look forward to, so they can be like, okay, I can't own the house, and it's something that I could either build upon and sell it, or keep doing it and get into real estate, or it's something that I can have as equity, something I could pass down to my kids, things like that. So that's really, as far as I'm looking at it, following my purpose, and the income, residual, the everything's gonna come from there as long as I follow my purpose and do what God put on my heart by telling my story. Because I am one of those YNs that y'all call, but I learned a lot, and I came from out of that. Even though I still got some of the ways, I got some of the attitude still on me. I still got a lot of work to do on myself. But yeah, that's how I'm looking at it. No, that's awesome. I love hearing how young people, their minds work differently, and that's you're seeing so much more stuff on the internet. You guys live in a different generation, so you're exposed to so much more than what I was exposed to. So my thought process when I was your age, a little bit younger, was just mainly self. God by the Holy Spirit, there's no more God than Him. When I try to do it myself, it's a big mess, So I know He died for my sins, but it was the third day. That's what I believe. When I let Him lead, it's so much better than when I try to do it myself. But there's no bigger testimony out there than you doing it, and also putting into yourself knowledge, money, understanding of how things are going on economically, and that people can see you do it, and then you're a light to them because that's what they're going to want to do. So I would definitely encourage you to look into, as far as life insurance, IULs, something that pays you back, you can take loans off. You can get those houses. You start putting money in. I think if I'm not mistaken, you got to put in 2 or 3 years, and then you're able to take some equity out of that IUL. And you can start going and get you a house and then pay the IUL back. That's how you become your own bank. You get rid of that system. Then you start getting compound interest on your IUL. You can do so many things. You, as a younger person, have so many opportunities to make a change in your life and people around you that I didn't. And maybe there's some people that are older than me in here that probably didn't have the same thing either. I'm learning younger. As we're sitting here right now talking, you guys were talking, I'm trading stocks in the stock market. I'm going to keep all the way down. What's that? Oh, sorry. I thought I was on mute. I'm at work. Hold on.
Don't take those chances.
Anyway, just encourage you, man, to keep doing it. I want to thank you guys for this conversation that we have here. So I appreciate you.
I'm a firm believer in holding people accountable. I don't believe you can have them type of aspirations when you're literally supporting something that's actively and openly trying to get rid of you and make sure that shit you're talking about is impossible. Like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer dog. I'm just gonna keep it on with you, nigga. You make no sense. Like everything you're right. Like no, something for just dog. You're asking to create this better world, but you're supporting policies and a person who actively and openly telling you, I want this shit to burn down. Dog, make fucking sense, bro.
Can I just add a quick sentence to what Fuji is saying? Everything that you and Ryan have been talking about is based on a legal regulatory framework and this idea of rules that are applied fairly and can be counted upon to apply in the same way going forward into the future. So if we got rid of all of that, then all of these plans disappear. You realize that?
They're about to chain the boat up.
So you're saying that the fair market that we have now, if we get rid of the fair market, that all these plans disappear? I would agree with you 100%.
I think the problem with like what he was saying is like if you ask for no rules, but then you want to make rules. You want to make the world fair for people, but then you don't believe, but you also believe the world needs to be crueler first before it gets fair for people. It doesn't really add up. Like you're telling people to survive. Nobody survives hard times. And that's just the reality of hard times. Nobody survives the motherfuckers. Anytime people don't survive genocides. Genocides for the most part throughout human history are quite successful. Anytime there's like a collapse of a government happens, people die in droves. There's no world where like this country ended, but the world got better. It takes hundreds of years for them to kind of recover. That's what the Dark Ages happened. That's why the blank period happened. That's why we have these things occur. Like even look at Europe post World War II. There's an entire missing generation of Europeans. 2 or 3 missing generation of Europeans, and the world has never really recovered from that as far as white people birth rates. That's where they're on such a hyper decline right now. They're literally missing white people. So when we take into account like the idea of let's make the world better, you have to realize the people who are making the world better are usually going to be on the left, not people on the right. People who are conservative are not interested in the shit Justice talking about in no capacity. They don't believe poor people deserve food, housing, or a chance to better opportunity. That's what we're talking about.
You're kind of categorizing everybody, putting everybody in a box.
It's the truth, though. I'm not categorizing somebody. Stop. I'm not categorizing when somebody openly states and makes a 925-page fucking manifesto of how they're gonna make the world worse. That's not categorizing somebody. When over 70 million people vote for that shit, that is not me saying I'm categorizing people. When people actively go to rallies, support people saying we're gonna turn it up a notch. This guy here who just died, he's the reason we're gonna use this energy for him dying to make the world a much worse place for people who we don't agree with. I'm not categorizing people. I didn't even categorize you. I'm just saying if you believe in the ideology of that guy, you support this guy, you don't believe making the world a better place. Fuck out of here with that. Let's make this shit cut and dry. Draw a line in the sand. You cannot agree with this man's policy and think this man is a good president, then sit back and say you want to make the world a better fucking place for everybody. When he actively says, I don't want to help nobody.
So you're sitting there saying is what Justice just said, what he said that he wants to do to help people is a complete lie. Because he likes what Trump is doing as far as tearing down the government.
Yes.
Start really.
Yes, you can't get arson to be the number one fucking firefighter.
Can I just say too, I think one of the biggest differences between folks traditionally on the right and folks traditionally on the left, or at least based on the policies that they've enacted and what they run on, is the left or the Democrats have historically championed regulation. Like we need industries to be held to certain standards. We need them to follow certain rules. You know, for example, the Democrats with the I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name, but the Bureau of Consumer Protection, the Consumer Protection Bureau, I believe, with Elizabeth Warren. And, you know, in the wake of the housing crisis on 2008, we need rules, we need to regulate. We can't let these people run amok. Capitalism's all well and good, but it has to be reined in by regulation. And then on the right, the argument is all this regulation, all this red tape, this is just hindering innovation. We need no rules. We need a free market. Let Adam Smith, invisible hand, let the market do what it do, and it's going to work out great for everybody. But what we've actually seen is people on the right who are backed by the billionaires, they don't want regulation because then it's easier for them to make up anything and do anything and cheat or whatever and not have anyone looking over their shoulder telling them you have to be fair here, you can't do this there. So then there's no ceiling on the amount of money that they could make. Whereas when you have rules and regulations on the left or the Democrats, there is somewhat of a ceiling. There are some rules, there are some guideposts, there are some fences, so that all everyday people can participate in that system, right? I can participate in the stock market or whatever. I can buy a house, and I know that there's going to be certain rules that protect me because I don't have the influence of a billionaire. I don't have the unlimited resources. So I need the federal government to step in and give me some protection from the wild, wild west, right, of the market.
Sure. I would say that, a lot of people have problems with it, but I don't have a problem with billionaires being billionaires because a lot of people think that they just stack their money up like Duck McScrooge over there in the corner in a vault in their basement, and that's how it gains interest, and that's not how it works. Innovation is huge. I think that they put the money back out there because they know if they put those billions of dollars back out there, it's going to return even more money to them than it would just sit in a bank account getting 4% interest. That's how millionaires and people in business think, and that's how their life thinks. So I think personally, as Just doing what he's doing is a very good thing. I think he wants to help his community on top of not just helping his community, but getting alongside people that mentor him that have done the things that he's looking forward to doing. And that to me is a huge thing. I never had that growing up, and it wasn't until I learned older. So starting out his age, I think he's going to be well past where I'm at now in my life. He's going to be well past that just because he's setting himself up in a position to succeed.
But he's supporting.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, let me just jump in real quick, Fuji. Yeah, but y'all don't have all of this ideology and roses and strawberries. That sounds great, but that's not the world we live in. That's not what's going on. So he can have all of that, or I don't even know how you got that. This just said he supports a man who is actively against people that look like him. So I don't understand, what positive, y'all just talked about being soldiers but don't want to stand on nothing. I don't get it. I'm just lost.
This is what I'm saying. All right. First, I want to say just understand.
Can I ask him a question real quick, Just? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me ask him a question real quick. Culture, I don't know you, man. You sound like you're an educated cat. I ain't gonna lie about it. You sound like you know what's going on. Can I ask you a question? Do you work for somebody, or are you self-employed, got your own thing going on?
I have both.
Okay, cool. So you're working for somebody. If your boss come up,
I have both.
Okay, cool. You got both, man. I ain't mad at you, man. Do your thing. Let's say the boss that you're working for, even though you are a boss, but the boss that you're working for, if he come to you and told you right to your face, point blank, I don't know what you get paid, I ain't trying to go there, know that, but I'm just saying, if he come and told you right to your face, I don't like the way you look, I don't like the way you think, I don't look like you, I don't know if you're black or white, but let's say he's opposite of you, I don't like the way you look, but I can look at your work ethic, and I cannot deny that you work hard, and I like that. So I'm going to give you a $10, $15, $30, $100,000 raise a year on top of extra vacation, extra benefits. Would you accept that from him, or would you quit that job just because he didn't like the way you looked?
So now we're taking handouts?
But that's not actually
I asked a simple question, man.
Can I just respond briefly?
I don't really understand how that, but I would.
Wait.
But that doesn't really make sense.
And then you guys can have it. So, Culture, you said you would take it. You'd be like, yeah, okay, I don't care if you don't like me or nothing, the way I look, but I'll take that money because you respect my work ethic.
Yes, I would take it, and then I would go to HR.
Good. Fair enough. That's just a simple question I was asking.
Okay. How does that correlate?
Because I know some people, because I've dealt with people that I work with, and I asked that same question. And the guy I work with, he's, we keep each other honest. He's on the left, and I guess I'm in the center, but right, whatever you want to call it. And I asked him that same question. He said I wouldn't take the money, and I would go to HR and try to get a lawsuit. And I was trying to understand in my mind that for me, I don't care what somebody thinks about the color of my skin, the thing I comb my hair, I got a bald head, doesn't matter to me. If I work my butt off and they recognize that and they're willing to reward me for my hard work, then I'm more probable to accept that and likely to accept that just because they recognize the hard work. I don't need you to like me as a person. I don't need you to like me because of my skin color. But dang, I put my butt on the line. I come and give up my hours to get compensated for hard work that I do. And if you recognize that and you're willing to compensate me for that, then I've succeeded in that part.
I'm glad you said that. Well, let me just say that, and that underlines exactly your values and what you feel is important. You cannot disrespect me for no amount of money. I'm a black man who understands understands history. I understand what people look like, what the people that in my own family lineage and in other family lineages and in other disenfranchised humans on this here landmass had to go through for me to even have the luxury of getting up and going to work today and being offered the option of a raise, for me to allow someone to disrespect me for some fucking money. And that is where, when I don't know how old you are, but this is what I'm talking about. The Republicans or whatever, I don't know what you are, but a lot of these people talk about morals, values, law and order, and to me, I don't care how much money you argue. You start off with saying, I don't like you, I don't like the way you look. We have a fucking problem in this country, because that doesn't, when you say you don't like me and you don't like the way I look, that doesn't mean that. That means as a black man, that means a whole bunch of other things behind that. And as a Hispanic man, as probably a Jewish man, when you hear those words, that's not just, I think you're ugly, which is fine. But it's not just, I don't, like your personality, which is awesome. No, that's a dog whistle, or it's telling what I don't like you as your presence, as a race, as a person who has autonomy. I don't like that. So yeah, we got a problem, and then furthermore, I would still have to continue to work with you, so I would have to have some type of trust, and that just because you offered me some money, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna trust you and move forward with you. And I think that's the biggest disconnect that we have in a lot of these conversations, because y'all are saying that like that's valuable, and that's not valuable to accept money over anything, because that's just not valuable. You have to have some type of dignity, and honestly, if you have kids and you're a progenitor of other little bodies, you will want to take a stance, because that doesn't move the needle for them. You took the money, and now they're gonna go through the same shit you went through, and they may not get offered money. They may get killed, all because you were you were only thinking about money. So I think different.
No, it's respectful. I respect your opinion, your thoughts 100%. The way I see it is that if I was given that extra money, even though somebody didn't like me because of skin color, my ugly face, whatever, I know that what I can do with that money in my side of my life and with my family and with the people around me and people that are hurting, I can help them a lot more. And then to me, that's where my heart's at. Sure, take me, beat me, work me down, talk me down, but if you're going to pay me to where I can help the ones around me that really need it, then that's what I'm willing to do. Well, I'm not interrupting nobody, man. I'm trying to talk. I'm just asking.
Yeah, okay, go for it.
Thank you. So
he calls him a man. That's Scotty. That's a man. A gay man, but that's Scotty talking. That ain't a woman.
Talk about stripping billionaires.
That's Scotty.
Taking their money and giving it out. But yes, some people are saying, and I'm not saying this is your culture, but some people are saying, take the money from the billionaires, give it to other people. Now they're the ones putting their value on that monetary.
That's a
take it
man.
from somebody else. But I'm saying I could take it from somebody else to help people. It's kind of like a weird dichotomy to me, but I get where you come from, and I respect what you mean, what you're saying, Cole.
Brian, there's economic science with billionaires. A large part of how businesses of scale and corporations operate really differently than household finance or small business is when you have billions and billions, there's barriers to entry, there's economies of scale, there's all these really important economic phenomena that have been documented for more than 50 years. Of course, we don't steal from billionaires and make them non-billionaires, but we tax them a lot. That would be very sensible, because today their wealth isn't in salary, their wealth isn't in cash. They keep their wealth in strange ways. So Kamala's economic policy at her bottom was a middle-class economist. He was an economist at Stanford, and she's had some of the best economic policies out of any politician in U.S. history. She was just talking about, when you're a billionaire, you got to pay your fair share of taxes, because I think it was Warren Buffett that said, when I pay less tax than my secretary, there's something seriously wrong with this policy. And it's important to look at economics as a science, because when you're a billionaire, you have economies of scale, you have barriers to entry, you have access to global markets, and small businesses and individuals and highly salaried individuals just don't have that. So
the example you gave, where the boss comes to you and says, listen, I might hate everything about you, but I cannot deny how hard you're working, and so here's $100,000, right? That's not really how the economy or how capitalism works. If people got money based on how hard they work or how much value they added, we would not have all of the extreme. I mean, who was working harder than the slave? Who added more to the America could never have been the economic superpower that it was early in its life as a country without all of that free, very, very hardworking labor that they made money off. Let alone, I mean, today you can look
There's
at
no
the
such
farm
thing as
workers
free, stupid.
who's
You
working
still gotta feed,
harder from
you
sun
still
up to
gotta
sundown.
clothe, you still gotta house,
You
you
can
still
look at
gotta
even
care.
this issue of
Everything is an
minimum
expense.
wage.
It's called asset
The
management.
value that workers,
It's
because
called
this is another disagreement between the right and the left
expenditure of
in these
asset share.
categories. Who is actually the person that is adding value to these corporations? From the perspective of someone
You,
on
the
the
consumer.
left, or for the people, it's the workers. The workers are the ones bringing the value in those factors. These people could never do what they do. You couldn't make all the hot chocolate packets or whatever they do without the workers. But the right, they're saying, no. The workers are just, they're little widgets. They come and go. They're a dime a dozen. It's actually these visionaries and these, CEOs and these investors that are adding the value, right? The other thing is, if people were making money based on their hard work, why hasn't the federal minimum wage, isn't it still like $7? This is crazy. I mean, imagine, just think about that. I work the federal minimum wage, or I think Bernie, for years, they've been saying $15, which is also very little. This doesn't even come up to the standard of, they haven't even increased it. I mean, from my perspective, they should have said, sure, we wanted $15 12 years ago, but now we want $25 because everything is more expensive. So even the basic concept of you should be paid a living wage, the amount of money you make should be equivalent to what it takes to buy some food and pay your rent. That is controversial. So this is the whole idea of, because the unregulated capitalism, what you'll hear all the time in these corporations, you've got to do more with less. We've all just got to do more with less. Are the CEOs doing more with less? When have they ever? They are doing less with more. So the idea is that the system, if you let it play out on its own, and if you're a Christian, then you should believe in the fallen nature of man, that we are inherently, since the fall, we are greedy, we are wicked. We need the awesome power of the Holy Spirit to come into us and help us to do the right thing and to see the light. So therefore, if that's what we believe about people, we know that people are greedy. We know that people are going to play unfair. We know that people don't have the care, by and large, that they should for their fellow man. And the system that we have, if anything, has rewarded this and pushed it even further and further. So that's why we needed some basic laws and regulations, not even whatever the people on the left, the Democrats, whatever, are advocating. It's not going to result in people being rich, but maybe it could result in people being able to eke out a meager existence, some sort of dignified life. And I just don't see how anyone could be against that on the basis that, no, that's bullshit because this billionaire needs to buy his 12th yacht. Like, it's ridiculous.
All right, I think Spear. So it kind of moved the mic around a little bit so some new people could talk too.
I mean, the conversation has shifted, but it's remarkable listening to people with so little integrity that they're okay to be shit on to make a few dollars. Meanwhile, you are impacting everybody ahead of you to create and perpetuate a system where the next people are continued to be shit on over and over again because you lack integrity. It's remarkable to me how low we have sunk.
Projection alert number 2 of the day.
TC, do you have something that you'd like to? Well,
that's a first.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Just you're saying you agree with Malak, but she's not saying anything that aligns with what you're saying. So, is your mind being changed, or what's going on?
No. So okay. Just before I speak, just understand that everything I've said, you haven't understood anything I've said yet so far. So
have I not understood, or have I just disagreed?
Both, because you didn't ask any questions for clarification, and I noticed that.
But
so
I wasn't listening
to understand.
I would only so, bro. We don't have to do like some classes. Listen, so let me explain something to you. You ask
take him to school, brother.
When you need clarification.
Teach him the truth.
If I didn't need clarification, there was no need for me to ask for clarifying questions. Furthermore, you can't. You're qualifying that as me not listening to understand, bro. You're just using words that you've heard. You have to make them make sense. Just because a person hears you and understands the first time doesn't mean that they weren't listening. Like, so go ahead. I understood what you said. I just disagreed.
So I don't know if it was you. I didn't have my phone in my hand, but somebody had said something like, "How can I be wanting America to fall, but at the same time I'm talking about building my community? And how does that correlate? How can I think both of those things at the same time?" Right? Was that you that asked that?
I'm sure. I mean, that sounds like something me or whoever else. But my question to you was what I just asked. You had a very different opinion than Malek gave a submission, and you said she's cooking, which I agree with, but it doesn't align with anything that you said before. So
because I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I'm not signed it. I'm very, very open-minded to different perspectives and different ideas and different ways of thinking. I don't think one. So, like, a lot of things can exist and be true all at the time. That's just how I think. I think in layers. Like, everything is multi-layered. Nothing is just one-sided. So I think when we do like that, like even when I initially agree with something or disagree with something, I don't just stick to, okay, I disagree. And the reason I might disagree because I'm disagreeing with something that may be true, it may not be true, but the fact that it don't align with the way I think, I'm not just going to just disagree and leave it at that. If I disagree, I'm going to ask questions to like really try to understand what the hell this person is saying, because I'm so in such disagreement. I'm like, okay, where did you get this from? Why are you thinking this? How do you think this helps? Like, I will ask further questions to gain clarification whether I agree or disagree.
Or I could have heard this before, and you think your opinion is on the block, but it's a generated opinion that I've heard a million times. So I was able to identify it, and I didn't need to ask any further questions because I already know. I mean, you just don't have enough information, and that's with all respect, you don't have enough information, and so I implore you to just look at, history, because one thing you can learn about history is that it usually repeats itself. So you can take the things from history and you can, usually apply them, and scale.
Well, maybe you should study more than just history, like philosophy. It's just an idea.
Have a very narrow view.
Because history and philosophy.
Or a very
and philosophy
view.
and history. It's called intelligence.
But what you have to do is go further back, look further back in history. So you made a lot of definitive statements about your generation compared to mine. And upon listening, you don't really seem to be informed about my generation or what was going on in the crack epidemic or under Reagan. So I would just implore you to look at those things and then do your comparative analysis and see if you come up with the same answers that you have now.
Yeah, actually, I've been. It's weird. I've actually been into this type of stuff, and I've been doing my research, and I know about the Reagan administration. I know about a lot of stuff. I've been doing deep dives like 12, and when I was incarcerated, I was privileged to come across a lot of books that a lot of people in the free world still to this day aren't aware of, such as books like Behold a Pale Horse. Have you read that book?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so let me ask you this. All right, since you say, history repeats itself, do you remember how Black people was freed from bondage and slavery? Do you remember what took place in order for that to happen?
Yeah, and I just want you to know, Pale Horse, that's not like exclusive.
I know, it's not an end-all be-all, I know.
But it's also a very, it's not a book that I would reference. I'll just say that.
Let me ask you a question real quick. What if you don't mind sharing, what industry are you in? You're a business owner?
No, I have been. I failed a lot in life.
But that's okay. But what are you doing right now for yourself?
Right now, I'm a truck driver.
Is it your own rig, or are you working for a truck driver?
No, I'm working for a company.
Finish? What's going on?
Oh, I didn't know they were. Go ahead.
It's all good. But yeah, so the question is, so tell us how we, as Black people, got free from bondage. What took place?
What do you mean, like how slavery ended?
Yeah, like what made the white man say, you know what, freedom?
I don't know. I mean, that's a long story. There was a war, and
who was fighting?
What do you mean? Who was fighting? The North and the South?
Before that,
we'll do better if you. Why don't you just tell me?
The man is a professor of history.
You said I don't know enough, so I thought you would have these type of.
I don't know where you're going with this. So once maybe I find out the line of questioning, then I can probably answer better.
Okay, so when I'm advocating, I'm not advocating math.
Let them finish talk to you.
We went plantation. Look up the Gullah Geechee Wars.
I don't have to. I am that, sir.
Okay,
so is the motherfucking Gullah Geechee bitch.
Them going plantation to plantation, killing white people, right?
I do not.
So you should. I go back and look into it some more. I know you said you are Gullah Geechee. The lady who raised me, she's from Bonneville, Georgia. She's Geechee.
Because the Gullah Geechee Wars were a 100-year conflict starting in the 18th century.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, you just told me that they were having a back and forth. Now you would have a back and forth. You're gonna interrupt.
Be quiet.
Justice, conversation.
Quiet.
You literally just chastised me for interrupting.
Quiet.
And she'll do it again.
Same thing.
Go ahead.
It's all good. So basically, when I look at stuff like that, right, and all that bloodshed, just for us to be fucking not even still treated as humans, just for us to be free from slavery, all that blood had to be shed, and it caused a panic across the whole nation. They like, fuck, if they keep this up, they're gonna kill all of us. They couldn't stop us. They could not stop them. They couldn't. So they had to free us. Because that's what we were fighting for, to be free. So what I'm saying is, fast forward time. When has that anything like that ever happened again in America?
You mean just black people? Like, what do you mean like physically, or do you mean as in just resistance?
Both.
I mean, many times.
They go hand in hand. I'm talking about on that scale, to where it's so much chaos going on that laws had to be moved.
Have you ever heard of the Black Panthers?
You know what happened to them?
But you wait, hold on. Don't. Hold on. Let me just give you a little piece of it. What you're doing? Hold on. You're moving the goalpost. You asked me, did I have an example of a group, forming some type of resistance and them making a law in, as a retort or whatever. Damn, what is the word I'm looking for? But they made laws because of it. And so I gave you the Black Panthers. So now what? Don't ask me. So what happened to the Black Panthers? Because that's not the point that you were making. So
referendum was the word you were looking for.
Okay.
I don't know that, but yeah, that's cool too.
All right, so let me just try to bring my point home, because the reason I asked that question is because you chimed in and said something, and the conversation was about to go somewhere else. I know that's not where I was getting at, but that is what you chimed in with. Okay, so what I'm saying is with the whole Trump thing, right? Fast forward time, like you said, history repeats itself. If we don't understand history, we're not gonna know where the fuck we headed. We're not gonna know what to expect. We have been doing what the fuck the government wanted us to do. We've been playing into their game for this long, and look how far it's got us, and look at the shit that we still talking about still to this day. We still have an issue with our government. Why?
Well, and I know some other people probably gonna want to chime in, but before everybody does, I just want to say this. I think that you have respect for the past. So I would say this, and I think you're cool. So I'm not gonna I think that you just don't know a lot of stuff, or you don't realize. But I think it's rude, and it's very presumptive to say, "Oh, how far has it gotten us?" Because my reply to that is very far. Do you know how we came here? Do you know what we came from? And you are sitting here as a black man, able to express your opinion, and as a black man, I'm able to debate with you without being killed, murdered, or whatever. And that's not eliminated. I don't want to downplay what is currently going on, but I think it's disrespectful to our ancestors who did these things to say, we still, to slight it like that, like to talk about it in that way. And I would, that's why I would like for you to just think about what you say before you say it, because they moved a lot of needles. I just need you to understand that.
I do understand, and I'm very appreciative of the people who came before us and died. They died in order for us to do this, right? They died. The people risked their lives in order for us to do this. You remember, Freedom School? It was even white people that died for this type of freedom and liberty. So what I'm saying is, something has to happen in order for a change on that scale. Like you said, history repeats itself, right? And the things that our people fought for, are you aware that right now, as we speak, a lot of those things that they died for are being undone? Are you aware that our freedom of speech is in jeopardy right now, as we speak? You do know that, right?
Because of Santa. So I think this is the issue and the difficulty, right? It's like, you have these historical moments, but your connection between them needs to be clearer.
because you're jumping significant historical time. You started with the Civil Rights Movement, then you went to slavery, then you went to the Gullah Wars, which were the 18th century and ended like before the Civil War. Like the historical timeline needs to be a little more cogent. I get your point though, and I think what culturally was trying to emphasize is that yes, history repeats itself, but that doesn't mean that it's always the same, right? You may have the same event. For example, if we are struggling now with this issue of free speech suppression, there have been other monumental times in American history, like the Red Scare, the McCarthy era, where people were penalized for their speech. People lost their jobs. Companies went bankrupt, right? Because the government was on a quest to root out communism. And so everything someone said or did, or a meeting they went to, a friend they had who may have slightly smelled like a communist, people were punished for that, right? So now the issue isn't communism, it's something else. Now the economic conditions are different, but people are still losing their jobs. So it is the sentiment or the policy return or the practice return. It's not always a literal one-to-one. So yes, we have progressed significantly over time, but because we are living in a democracy, we will return and revisit certain circumstances or situations as the population grows, as economic conditions change, as culture change. We have to revisit these things for the new people. But the fight or the commitment to the idea, to the ideal, or to the principle can't change. If you are for like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you have to be for that all the time. How you fight for it, it's gonna look different, but that's still the same principle.
Yes.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Just, I think the reason why I wanted to understand who you were first before I gave an opinion about how you were exploring your ideas is because I wanted to understand the type of person you were and what your worldview is. I think anybody that would lecture you that you're not doing it right, that you're seeking for information, it's not the right way to do it, that there are gaps in your logic and reasoning, is somebody that would indoctrinate you into their belief system. I think you're approaching. I think you're approaching questions.
You're annoying. No one is indoctrinating anyone. That is a process of scientific reasoning. That is not telling people what to think.
I think your approach to information was exploratory. I think you were asking just questions, and it was a very respectful back and forth, and it's the way you should engage in the exploration of your ideas and understanding the frontier of what you're studying.
It's not a frontier. It's a landscape, sir.
And you have to be prepared to defend your position, but at the same time have an open mind to accept other people's opinions. I think you've done that exceptionally just based on the Black community and our fight for freedom and our fight against oppression and that type of thing. Talked about the Geechee Gullah Wars and that type of thing. I'm curious, where do you think you find yourself at what time in the liberation struggle for Black Americans? Where do you think you find yourself? Do you think you find yourself on the frontier of that fight? That this is a new front to Black liberation, or do you find yourself, at the end of the fight, having won it and starting to step over into the promised land?
That question for me?
That's for you.
I see where I'm at right now. I see myself. I think it's stagnant. I think we are still, despite the changes that have been made. I think a lot of the changes that have been made were to pacify us. I think we have been very pacified and we've got very comfortable. But I think a lot of the same issues that we've been had, we're still having. Like,
what do you think the reason is for that?
because we are living on land that's being controlled by people who don't want to see us progress. They don't care for that. That's not their interest.
And how do you see yourself regaining your sovereignty and your self-determination from the stolen land that the people that occupy this land lives on with you?
Me personally?
Yes.
Me personally, in my own personal life, I'm just gonna, like I was saying earlier, with like focusing on the younger people under me. I want to focus on building my community up, and like that's all I can do is what I can do. Now, as for like a whole, as everybody who lives here, white, black, yellow, green, all of us as a whole need to stand up and actually do something. We're not doing anything. We like voting and all that shit. It's not doing it. It's not, because if it was doing it, it would have been done.
I would challenge you, and then I'll give it back to the stage. I would challenge you to consider the voting habits of your people and whether that served your people well or not, right? Because I would argue that we have to critically analyze what are the beneficial outcomes from the decisions that we've been making over the last 30, 40, 50 years. I'm inclined to agree with you that we are at a bit of a, the word turning point has been used a lot over the last 2 weeks, but it's just an apt word or phrase to use right now. I do believe we're at a turning point culturally within Black America. We're realizing that our schools are no good. We're realizing that our people are too far dependent on the government for their sustenance, their well-being, their food and shelter. They're realizing that the political interests of the elite are not serving them well. They're realizing that their political alignment has been sabotaged by an agenda that takes advantage of that. I do believe we're at a turning point. What I would encourage you to do is I would encourage you to continue to explore those ideas, but look at it from the lens, and this is not me telling you how to do it, I would just encourage you to do it. Self-determination. No. Your community value, well then you should change that, right? You should be able exactly. So I think you should definitely explore what that looks like. Because self-determination for us for far too long has not been a value system that we've held, at least not for the last 40 or 50 years. But now we're having a renaissance, and this time period, this cultural time period that we're living in, is revealing the true intentions of the entrepreneurs that's been exploiting our community, on the left and the right.
To all the men watching around the world,
against the left all the time, but I can be open-minded enough to know that both the left and the right has taken advantage of Black Americans for far too long. You can look at corporations, advantage, the redlining and shit like that. These are things that have been promoted on the right, but at the same time, it's also been promoted on the left with the crime bill and with the military, the prison industrial complex.
Same side and the left Twitter this morning.
So what I want to do, it is, but at the same time.
And TC, you got 30 seconds, my dude.
I'm 6 minutes into a meeting that my team is on. So
all right, well, you about to be 30 seconds.
I don't get a lot of applause.
Now you got 20 more.
Because I encourage people to think against the groupthink. Groupthink wants herd mentality. That's where survival is. That's where instincts are. But far too often, when you follow the herd, you can follow the herd off the cliff. So I want to challenge provocative thought, and I think that's exactly the path that you're down. I would.
Just read Socrates, motherfucker. You can just read Socrates. You ain't even got to use the Socratic method. You can just read motherfucking Socrates.
So now, I'll let you hear that, and we tried to go as uninterrupted, because I do want you to be able to hear both sides. So as you go through life, there will be silly Negroes that come and do this very thing that TC just did. They will try to feed you a bootstraps mentality and a self-determination mentality. This is not true. Do not fall for that.
Self-determination is not true.
TC, please let me finish. I'll let you finish. So, this comes from a place of hating yourself and wanting to get your good nigger sticker from a white man, and wanting to point things out about your own community, and which is great. I do believe in being critical of oneself, but don't ever be the black man that allows other people or another group of people to make you think that somehow your group is lazy or